Now, what do you have to say about the whites from John Brown to your freedom riders all the way up until now that did work with black people to try to help overcome these oppressive forces?
Hey, man, much respect to them, man. Much respect to them for doing the right thing. That's why I always say we live in a system of white supremacy, and the white supremacists are the ones that are doing the dirty deeds. All white people are not racist, and all white people are not white supremacists. But unfortunately, the ones who do want to practice white supremacy, they are unfortunately more powerful than the ones who don't want to practice it. So we got to look at those who want to practice white supremacy. We got to look at the George Zimmerman juries. And speaking of George Zimmerman, this fool and got
Shot
into somebody and shot him because I heard he was waving his gun again at somebody during some altercation. So we got these psychopaths out here that these white supremacists let on the loose.
Exactly.
You understand? And now the karma is hitting them back again.
Yep.
So people got to understand the price of white supremacy is going up these days.
Whew. The feminization of black males. What is your thoughts on that? Because it's getting worse and worse every day.
You're talking about the feminization of black men. When you're in a system of white supremacy where you're being dominated and controlled, subconsciously that puts you in a feminine position or submissive position as a male if you don't understand that system and how to overcome it. So a lot of us, man, we fall into that trap, and you're not allowed to be a man. That's why they used to call black men boy all the time. They're not going to call you a man. They're going to call you a boy. Even back in the Jim Crow days, they would always refer to black males as uncle. They wouldn't even say mister. That's too much. That's giving you respect as a man. So as a black male, the white supremacist says you either going to be a boy or a substitute woman in the system of white supremacy. And that's something that we have to overcome.
Young black males, how do we reach out to them to let them know what they need to be doing?
We got to show by example, brother. That's the thing. These young brothers out here now, they understand the game, and they know that a lot of older black people are afraid. Older black people are scared to death to stand up against white supremacy because they want to carve out a little niche for themselves in the system of white supremacy and just kind of deal with it and let the children fall by the wayside. And the children are acting out right now. That's why there's a lot of riots. That's why there's a lot of uprisings right now, because the children now are showing no fear. They're not trying to be respectable black folks as we were taught to do, because that don't work. We were never going to be in a situation where the white supremacists were going to treat us equal. We have this thing where if we dress the right way, don't say I got pants, speak proper English, we're going to get treated equally. Dr. King and all the brothers and sisters in the 60s, they had on church outfits, and they were getting dogs sicked on them, bricks thrown at them, and water hoses put on them. And they had on their Sunday's best, and they were very college educated in the whole nine. So under the system of white supremacy, they're not going to treat you equal, so you treat yourself equal and create an economic situation to protect yourself from the violence of white supremacy.
When it comes to education, how important do you think it is for a young male to get educated? Because a lot of folks, when you put it in a book, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to see it. Especially in this video age where everything is 15 seconds. You better get me right now. I'm not going to sit down and read nothing. And then when you hear college or just further education, they're thinking, I got to sit down and read, and I got to take time out of my regular day to do that. I don't feel like doing it. How can we convince the youth to say, you know what, it's cool to be educated. I need to go and get this knowledge so I can bring it back to my community and make some changes also.
Absolutely. See, the thing is, education usually is not applicable to a lot of us, especially history. A lot of white kids, when they look at history, they see themselves. This is why the white supremacists will put their faces on historic images. Even our African images. So it's just like these movies showing Egypt, they're making the Egyptians white and making the Sphinx white and all that. The white children can see themselves in that, and that makes them more interested in it. They see themselves in George Washington and Abraham Lincoln. You just had the Lincoln movie. So we don't see ourselves. With Hidden Colors, we see ourselves, and after Hidden Colors came out, a lot of young people wanted to hit these bookstores up. Bookstores thank me all around the country for bringing business back to their stores, because their stores are being flooded with people getting those old books that we used to read back in the day. Now people are getting those books again after they've seen Hidden Colors.
Personally, how does that make you feel? Because that is a large and a huge accomplishment to get folks motivated to get this knowledge and this information.
It makes me feel great, and the work is not done. My thing is I want to keep on doing it, because a lot of people will say, well, how come you keep doing the Hidden Colors series? This is Hidden Colors 4. Well, I'm like, hell, there's Spider-Man 7, Iron Man 5, Fast Furious 20, Friday the 13th, 18th. So you dig? So they got all these sequels to that. Don't complain about a sequel to a movie that's going to educate you. So we got to keep the thing going. I think sometimes when we get a victory as black folks, a lot of times we get very celebratory too soon. Just like I was in Baltimore, I did a town hall meeting in Baltimore, and some people out there, there are tanks and there's military out there, and people out there having block parties, basically. They're out there just kind of having a little bit too much fun.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey man, this ain't over yet.
Yeah.
This is not over. This can go left at any minute. And it did go left a few days ago because somebody else got shot out there. So we got to stop celebrating so soon and not jump and hop around over one little victory. We got a long road to go to empowerment. We got to continue the road of black empowerment.
Blacks getting the code of conduct, self-empowerment, and black business owners.
Yes, indeed.
What is your thoughts on that?
Man, that's the most important thing. I call it melanoid empowerment. We need to empower ourselves economically. We need to also travel and link up with brothers and sisters on the continent of Africa and work with those brothers who the resources are there, but they're not taught how to refine the resources and how to distribute the resources. We have access to a lot of that knowledge that we could link up with those brothers and share and work with them with. We need to circulate our money around our communities. There are so many abandoned buildings and locations in black areas all around the country that we can clean those places up and start businesses. We get in this thing. I do my podcast, and I had a girl call me up and she said, well, Tariq, Floyd Mayweather got all that money. He need to open up some black businesses in Detroit. I'm like, how come you didn't open up no black businesses in Detroit? And then she started stuttering. Anybody can do that. Asians and Arab people who come over from China, Thailand, and the Middle East come from shacks, save their money, and buy these abandoned buildings, and they start circulating their money, and they become successful. We can do the same thing. Exactly. We just got to have the will and the way to do it. We're taught over here to just wait on the record deal. The African brother who comes over here, he knows the record deal ain't coming. That's why Jamaican brothers, the minute they hit the shore, you can't stop them from making money because they know the basketball contract ain't coming. See, we're waiting on the so-called American dream, which is okay, but we have to get out there and work and build for ourselves. The American dream to black folks is basically find a white person who likes us, who will give us something. And we can't think like that no more. We got to look, like John Henry Clark said, look at that person next to you and realize that's the only friend you got.
Now, what do you think that poverty and things like that does on the psyche of young black people? Just recently, over the weekend, me and my wife, we from the hood as I like to call it. And we were taking our children back through our hood just to show them the difference between where they living now and where we grew up at. My wife in the car, she want to start crying because she's thinking, I didn't realize that it was that bad until I started showing my kids where I came from. And the psyche to be able to overcome that in itself is impressive.
Yes, it is.
But then the psyche of those that are still there that can't get out of it. Because in the same breath, my friends that did stay, and this is one thing that also stresses me out and scares me, we got serial killers in our own hood. I got people that are dying every year, and guess what? They ain't getting caught either. You see what I'm saying? We got people that are getting murdered every year. Some of them are fathers, some of them are businessmen, some of them are hustlers and drug dealers also. But they're being murdered by their own people, and nobody's being brought to justice for it, and more people are dying. How do we get in there and try to fix that problem?
Yeah.
Because that's what's really hitting me close to home personally.
Yes, brother, I lived in South Central LA. I lived in Compton. I was out there hustling real heavy before I did the Hidden Colors. You did. People try to bring up my hustle background a lot, which I don't never hide from.
That's right.
But I used to get it in, but then I realized, I'm like, wait a minute. This is designed because we would go in and out of jail back in the day, but all the dope spots, everybody knew where the dope spot was. Everybody knew where the Holstro was. Everybody knew where the Chop Shop was. Everybody knew who the person who had the hookups on the illegal credit card. So everybody knew that. So I'm like, if we all know it, I know cops know it. So how come the cops are letting this happen? Then I started to see the game for what it was. The hood is basically designed by the white supremacists. That's something that we're placed in. And they systematically create situations where black people are funneled into these deprived neighborhoods of resources. And they use that to funnel you inside of the prison system. That's a money-making endeavor. They make so much money off the hood with not only the prison system, with the food stamps and EBT cards. They make billions of dollars off EBT cards. Chase owns those EBT cards. So black poverty is a very profitable thing. Police officers make a gang of money policing those neighborhoods. Get new uniforms, new cars. You hire a whole bunch of unemployed white people to work these prison systems. So black poverty is a money-making endeavor. And when that clicked to me, I said, okay, let me get up out of here and create a situation that we control outside of the white supremacist influence as much as we can, because we're still in a system of white supremacy, but you can protect yourself as much as you can and not fall for the traps of poverty that's set by the white supremacists.
What was it that clicked in your head that made you say, you know what, I got to get up out of here?
We got to understand this, because I don't like to make excuses, but obstacles are deliberately put in front of black people in America. That's a fact. They have all-white unions that will go out of their way to not hire black people. There's studies showing that people with black names are less likely to even get your application seen. So out of frustration, a lot of us say, man, damn this, I'm about to get out here and hit these bricks.
Especially if you're a convicted felon.
Exactly. And when you become a convicted felon, which is what they want you to do,
yes, right.
You can't vote. There's a lot of things. They keep you on those papers for a few years, forever actually. They keep you on those papers for a long time. And we got to understand that trap. Now, I got my record expunged. Because, I had a felony. Yeah. And I understood the game. I said, hold on, let me play this thing correctly, because I fell into that trap. Let me dig myself out of that trap. And a lot of brothers out there, too, if you got a felony, you stay clean for 7 years, you get that off your record. So understand that. You won't have a felony for the rest of your life. But I wised up to the game and said, okay, I'm not going to fall for this trap no more. Because when you hustle, let me talk to my hustlers out here for a minute. One thing I tell dudes, if you in the streets, I'm not the moral police. In any hustle, man, the minute you get good in the game, you got to start thinking of an exit strategy. The problem with hustlers, you get in the game and the game gets good and you start getting lazy thinking that you're going to make that street money forever. And two things are going to happen. Number one, you're going to get big, and when you get big, people are going to be looking at you. Law enforcement, they're going to be looking at you. The streets are going to be looking at you. Somebody in the streets is going to try to take you out, and somebody's already snitched on you. You're already in the law enforcement Rolodex. They're just trying to see how many other people they can get with you. All right? Understand that. So when you start making your money and you get a good stride, start looking at the exit strategies. Start figuring out ways you're going to flip yourself up out the game. Because a lot of dudes try to stay in the game forever, and then you get caught up and then somebody pop you. One or the other. So you got to start thinking about exit strategies and stop falling for the tricks of white supremacy, man. It's real out here. And understand this, any people who are impoverished and they are segregated, that's going to be a criminal society. The first gangs in America were European immigrants. There's a great movie, The Gangs of New York, talking about how the gangs got started. Those European gangs were about that life. But the minute they started giving them opportunities, they got themselves together.
Exactly.
We haven't been given those opportunities, so we have to create those opportunities ourselves.
Now, as a writer, how were you able to get that book published? New York Times, New York best-selling author, okay? That's a dope, crazy accomplishment.
Yes, indeed.
I know a lot of writers. I know a lot of people that got books inside of them. And when I tell them to go and write it, they're like, I need a job. I need to figure this out. And it goes back to what KRS-One was saying, too, with people are working. You got those that are working that enjoy working. You got those that are working and they just going through hell while they working. And you got those that are working to self-empower themselves.
Yes, indeed.
How can we get people to write, and what were some of the steps that you took to become an author?
Man, they always say, man, you write what you know.
Exactly.
That's the thing. You write what you know. So my first book was a book called The Art of Mackin.
Talk to me.
I wanted to do it because I do relationship advice.
Yeah.
And I wanted to write a book teaching dating techniques that I share with my friends. That's what I knew. So I wrote the book. I got a book called The Literary Marketplace. It has all the names of every publisher out there. Now, remember, I don't know nothing about writing at all. I just wrote in a very conversational style. Because people, when they want to write a book, they say stuff, well, do I need to take a writing class? I need to go to community college. When you say that, you're just trying to talk yourself out of it. People overschool themselves.
That's right.
Stop overschooling yourself. You meet somebody, a whole bunch of people who's taken classes forever. They done took 20 classes. I got partners every time I see them. Man, I just got this student loan. I'm about to take this photography.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm about to take up this zookeeping thing, brother. You know, they got all types of classes. And the pandas need help, brother. You don't know. I'm like, all right, man. So they just use all of these excuses to not get out there and do stuff. Woo. So I just started writing, man. I just wrote the book. Got somebody to help me edit it, make sure all the words were correct. And I found a publisher in Chicago, sent it to them. They put it out, and the book sold 250,000 copies, became a New York Times bestseller. I got other book deals with the major publishers because of that, and my writing career took off from there. So you just got to get out there and do it, and just take your time to do it, because you can't wait for the right time. That's another thing. People say, well, I got to wait for the right time to write. I wrote The Art of Mackin when I was in my early 20s. I'm a million years old now, but I wrote it in my early 20s. And, you know, I'm at the club, Mackin, you know, hollering at the ladies, you know, I'm single bachelor. So I had to put that aside for like 5 months and say, okay, let me discipline myself for 5 months, get this book out. It's like giving birth. Giving birth, it's going to hurt for a minute, but after it hurts, that baby that you produce is going to be off the chain.
Exactly.
And we don't want to put in the discipline a lot of times. It's just like going to the gym, and when you go to the gym, it don't feel good, man. You tired, you sweating,
and
you hungry. Too long. It take too long, man. But after you go and you get that workout and you get the pain out the way, you look great, you feel great. Exactly. And that's the same thing with doing something that you're supposed to do. Just get out there and do it and stop worrying about the pain, because the pain is going to be worth it when you see the fruit of that pain.
Oh, man, you ain't never lied about that. Now, Hidden Colors 4.
Man.
It's on the way.
Yes, it is.
What are we tackling in this thing?
Dude, we're going for the jugular. We're going straight for the neck.